Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations around money. I'm your host, Lauren, a 4-time Olympian and certified financial planner. On this show, my guests share their money stories. Everyone has a unique story and experiences both wins and losses when it comes to money. My intent is to give listeners something they can relate to, something that builds their courage to be open and take control of their own money story. When I'm not creating a great show for my listeners, I'm running my company, Worth Winning, where I help individuals and families organize their finances. Check us out at worth-winning.com. All right, now on with the show. Today, I'm excited to have Jedidiah Collins here to share his money memoir with us. Why am I so excited? Because like me, Jedidiah is an athlete turned certified financial planner. Not just an athlete that's gone into the financial industry or is in financial advising, but is specifically a CFP. And he did it just like I did. He was earning his CFP between seasons while competing as a professional athlete. I think it's super cool that he decided to become an expert in personal finance, and he is now putting that knowledge to work in life after sport. He just became an author of a book called Your Money Vehicle, and he is host to the Rookie to Veteran podcast. So make sure you check both of those out. Jed is also a perfect guest as we continue to explore the topic of men and money during this month of June. Jed is going to give us a sneak peek into the conversations he had with teammates about finances, some of the important lessons he earned in his own life, and why he decided to write a book he wanted to share with the world. I really love the way Jed shares so authentically about money issues men face, especially those in the sports industry. He's a great speaker and storyteller, so you're really going to enjoy this episode. Let's listen as Jedidiah Collins shares his money memoir. Jedidiah, it's so great to have you on the show today. I know we did a little bit of back and forth, but this is the perfect topic, men and money in the month of June. And I'm excited to talk to you all about your story and what your perspective is as a man who manages money.
This is a wonderful opportunity, so I appreciate it, Lauren. So I grew up in Southern California, a beautiful, beautiful place if any of you have been or seen Disneyland. But I grew up in Orange County, California. My father was the first in his family to go to college. He moved from out of LA and moved down to Orange County. And we were very disciplined. We were students first and athletes second. And we really prided ourselves on becoming more and more fully developed student athletes. But around me was this bubble. Orange County definitely has a bubble of mystique and way of life that is very materialistic, very net worth focused, very flashy. And oddly enough, within that bubble, my family was kind of the polar opposite. We were never into those kinds of measurements, never really judged one another based on those kinds of things. My father, who brought himself through this, his entirety of his financial plan was get a good job and stay out of debt. And while that's not a terrible plan, I realized later there is some more to money into finances. But growing up, he would tell us all the time, get a good job. That's why you're going to school, and avoid debt at all costs. And so those kind of two things reverberated in my head. And as I started to get paychecks, it was like, all right, that was my first two steps, but let me go learn a little bit more. But yeah, growing up in Southern California was kind of a trip because it is so focused on self-worth is your net worth. And now I've tried to remove myself so much from that, but it is still always something that is a battle of mine.
I feel like so many people deal with that too. You know, we talk about it all the time, that my net worth and my self-worth are not related, but it's much easier said than done depending on what kind of environment you're in. What kind of work did your dad do?
So he was an attorney, and he began his own law firm. He actually had the smallest minority-owned law firm for a long time west of the Mississippi. And so, yeah, he grew up in LA, went to Seattle U on a basketball scholarship, and then migrated back home to Southern California and met my mom. And I'm one of 5. So if you want any kind of financial planning tips, 5 kids might be too much. So that was always an interesting one. And what I've really come to realize is where you fall in birth order depicts so much of your attitude and your mindset and all those kinds of fun things. So Yeah, he was an attorney. He ran his own law firm. One of my brothers followed in his footsteps and became an attorney. And something I'm sure, Lauren, you understand, and I know firsthand, lawyers, doctors are some of the worst people with money. And everybody thinks like they are just the epitome of poor dad. I'm going to go get educated. I'm going to get one singular income. And that's the entirety of my plan. I'll always make more money. And they never really learn how to put it to use or learn how to manage it.
Yeah. The higher ranking or higher earning professions sometimes do bump into that roadblock of being an expert in their field and feeling like they have to be an expert in this field and maybe not understanding really the value of hiring someone because they are very brilliant people.
I always love to kind of humble myself and lower expectations by telling people, like, listen, you're much smarter than me. You're a lawyer. Like, obviously, you're smarter than me. But when your car breaks down, you bring it to a mechanic. Just consider me your money mechanic. Like,
Yes.
and then they're like, all right, hey, thank you for calling me smart. Now let's start talking about dollars. And it's like,
Right.
okay, yeah.
Gotta ease on in there and then
Yep. Ego. It's a real thing. Athletes don't have it. We don't have egos, but other people have egos.
not at all. No egos at all as athletes. You mentioned having some siblings. Tell me a little bit about one, your first memory of money, but also how you interacted or, was one sibling the saver? What kind of experience did you see through your siblings as it pertains to money growing up?
Great question. So my first memory of money growing up was probably 8 or 9 years old. I'm not positive, but I remember coming out of Nike Town, and Nike Town was a 45-minute drive. So it was kind of a trip. We were up there playing basketball. And as I left, one of the Nike Town workers came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to earn $5?" And I thought to myself, I said, well, yeah, I would love to. And I went and I filled out a quick little survey. He gave me an envelope with a $5 bill in it. And I was so proud. And I turned and I went and I handed it to my mom. And she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, well, I feel like I take so much, like, here's my contribution, $5. And I don't know why I vividly remember that interaction and engagement. My mom obviously was like, first off, $5 doesn't feed one of you children. So
Right. Not a happy meal in California, even back in the day.
yeah, right. So she was like, just go ahead and keep it. But we have a very interesting dynamic. So first off, of the five, my baby sister passed. So ended up being four. I actually inherited the baby role, which is why I need so much attention and I cry a lot. But my oldest sister is special needs, which from a financial perspective, this has taught me the appreciation of taxes. As I develop my cash management system, it begins with society choice and this idea that we choose to be a part of society. And I have seen the benefits and the support Emily, we call her sis, has gotten throughout her life. And you need to find and see positives of taxes. You look at the time right now, 30, 40 million people are unemployed. They are being supported through a government system called the unemployment insurance, which is provided by our taxes. So that was a big psychological shift for me. And I have an appreciation. I don't love paying more than I owe by any means, but I do have an appreciation for where it goes. And then the next brother was the Harvard law student. He went and became a lawyer. He had the one track mind. He has that beautiful discipline of, if I go do this thing right, I don't got to worry about much else. And that has been his financial plan. So far, it has worked for him to some degree. I would argue he could manage and create and generate more wealth through some planning. But at the end of the day, he is solely focused on his income and his career. And in my eyes, after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that is that poor dad mindset, is like we said, he doesn't need anything else. We've begun conversations, but he's been very hesitant. The middle brother is the engineer, and he is a little bit more of the emotional one when it comes to investing in money specifically. He's obviously the forgotten middle child, even though he has a master's from Berkeley. But we looked at it, and he is the one that always needed the numbers to add up. He needed the scientific proof. He's the engineer. He needed to see, like, hey, we're going to go buy this thing. Like, what is it going to give me in 6 months and then 2 years and then 12 years? And he always needed to see the spreadsheets. And so he approached it from an engineering perspective. And then me, I was the kind of hungry one. I also got a bigger paycheck from the NFL my rookie year. That kind of shifted my perspective. And so it humbled me to the reality. I knew nothing about money outside of my father's just avoid debt philosophy. And so I went and started to educate myself on this new language of money. And so we kind of, once I realized I was on the right path, was when my much smarter brothers started to ask me about money. I was like, all right. So we each have a different approach to it, a different relationship with it. And now we're trying to define exactly what money means to us and why I call my book Your Money Vehicle. I want people and I want myself to see money as a verb, not the noun. Money is not the destination to your plan. Money is the vehicle that is going to take you to a destination. And we really need to focus more on what we think money is going to provide for us and less on just a number.
I love that. Money is a verb, not a noun. Yes. All right. So quick question. What would your siblings have done with that same $5?
Well, the oldest brother would have definitely spent it on himself. He's the most selfish. The middle brother would have probably tried to find a way to put it towards some like kind of Legos or
I was going to say he would have built something with it.
He would have built something with it for sure. He was the kid who could take like pine cones and pine needles and create like an army base. And then sis, Lord knows what sis would have got, but we would have gone and got a Happy Meal or some nuggets, and she probably would have shared it with us.
Right.
Truly. Yeah.
The giver.
She would have appreciated it.
All right. So what was your first means of income? Did you have like a rake the leaves kind of job, or did you get a job as soon as you turned 16? Like, what was that like? Where did money start to come from?
So my first real job was playing in the NFL after college. Growing up, we had a big backyard that, again, my father was not in the military, but very militaristic. If you spent the night at the Collins house, you got up and did yard work before breakfast, which some friends liked and other friends never came back.
Right.
So I remember very vividly growing up, we would play a game and it was called King for a Day. I ended up playing football, but my family is basketball family. And so we play one-on-one basketball and the winner would get to be king for the day. And what that meant was you go out, you win the day, you get to boss the other two around. And although we weren't paid, we became employees. We became go to work like, hey, it's time to go check out the trash. I'm thirsty. Go clean the kennel. Go do this. Go do that. And the brother had that kind of authority. What else it taught me was not just how to go to work and the appreciation for the working mindset is it also taught me that in those hundreds and hundreds of times playing this King for a Day game, I only won twice. And I vividly remember those 2 times that I got to win as the younger baby brother. But what that in and of itself expressed to me was that I needed to be able to control my attitude and my effort much more than the outcome. And I think with money, that lesson is so needed. We all want to focus on the scoreboard when in reality, we can focus on just improving this play or improving our footwork or improving little inches at a time. And ultimately, the scoreboard take care of itself.
Yes, I love it. Attitude instead of the outcome. You can always control your attitude and your effort. And, I think that speaks to kind of mindset wise where we go as athletes in general.
I have a little saying that I talk about is called control your APE, APE, attitude, P, preparation, E, effort. And if you can control your attitude, preparation, and effort, those are the controllables that through any crisis, through any time, you're always going to be able to control those things because they are internal measurements, not external. So I appreciate that recognition of controlling your attitude. That is definitely one.
Yeah. Super cool. So I'm sure you had to use that frequently as you transitioned into the NFL. So let's start by talking about what the process was like of becoming an NFL player and what kind of happened as you went from college football to pro football and all the shenanigans that come along with that.
Yeah. Lots of shenanigans, many of which I don't think we can discuss on here. But I was always the fortunate fly on the wall. And I saw my perspective like that. I'm proud that I was now because I journaled a lot through it. I wrote my emotions, what I saw, who I saw do it, how to learn from these best in the world at what they do. But if I were to ask you, and this is not a trick question, how many times in my NFL journey do you think I got cut?
Seven.
7. So I get to stand in front of rooms full of rookies playing in the National Football League now, and I ask that same question. Nobody's ever gotten it right. Nobody's ever gotten close. I got cut 12 times. And that was my journey. A lot of people are like, wow, you played in the NFL. That was awesome. It was an amazing experience. But 12 times, a team called me, cut me, and told me my dream was over and to go home. And so that in itself showed me this football dream is going to be over before I really understand it. And so kind of dying before I got to live really allowed me to focus on capitalizing and capturing the dream. And the dream of professional sports is not to hear your name called as a rookie and walk across the stage. The dream is to walk out of that locker room with something to show for it. And so that perspective shift really helped me become a veteran and become mature. Now, after 12 times being cut, I did become the best in my position. I was ranked the number 1 fullback in the game, making me the best in the world at something. And so my philosophies, my principles that I stole from these guys really hold true. But my first paycheck, my rookie year, I grew up in Orange County. I actually studied accounting. I was a Washington State business major studying accounting. I spent my first paycheck before I even opened the envelope. And I looked around and I'm like, man, I would bet most of us all did the same thing in that locker room. Like we knew no other.
What did you buy? Can we know what?
That's where it's a cute story. I bought an engagement ring and my wife and I have been married for 10 plus years. So it was a good investment. But I will tell her to this day, that was very poor financial decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I made money, I spent money. That was the only relationship I had ever had with it. I wasn't a saver. I wasn't saving up for specific events. Even this engagement ring, I wasn't preparing or planning for it.
But no debt.
No debt. Paid for it in cash. I shifted to that saver mindset my rookie year. Okay, well, I know I want to stockpile some money for a vacation or for a home or for just a cushion. And then I went and started to read personal finance books. Each time I'd go down to Barnes & Nobles and I would just walk that aisle. And I started to realize what that investor mindset. So I went from a spendor to a savor, now becoming an investor. And they don't all spell OR, but I like to ask people, what type of OR are you? And it all depends on how long you see money. I got that first check. I saw money day to day. I spent it. Then I started getting checks. I started seeing money in 6 month or year-to-year time frame. I started to save it. And it wasn't until I started to see money in a decade time frame, like a true investor, that I started to see, wow, this secret of the wealthy, the secret of the people that I don't know, they put money to work for them. They make money their employee. And my father, very academic, very highly educated, to this day doesn't understand the investor mindset. He definitely doesn't want his youngest son telling him about it. I'll tell you that. But
right.
that shift of that first paycheck, I remember 2 nights after that, waking up in sweat and anxiety, knowing, man, I've been cut already a bunch of times. I don't know how long this thing's going to last. And if I just treat money like a spender and it comes in and goes out, I'm going to end this game with some physical tolls and nothing to show for it. So that's where my mindset really started to shift into, okay, I got to go learn and educate myself.
I love it. I love it. I love it. It's like the transition started to happen organically for you. And I think that happens sometimes for a lot of people. You know, you have an event and you realize like, hey, wait a minute, this is a lot. And it doesn't sound like it was like a terrible mistake. He said it ended up being an investment. You're still married.
Yeah, yes, she's worth keeping.
Yeah. It cut on a light bulb for you that said, okay,
yes,
I can't do this every single time. So what do I need to do instead? And the first thing we want to do when we make a change is to go out and seek knowledge. And that's exactly what you did.
And on that note, education is vital. Education is a very, very important first step. But where I see a lot of financial education fail is in the lack of activity after. Whether it's the NFL, whether it's Amazon, whether it's whoever, if you come in and sit through a 1-hour workshop, your life is not changed. And I'd really set those expectations of like, man, 1 30-minute conversation is not going to change anything. It's a daily exercise. It's daily actions. And that's why in the book, each chapter comes with its own set of actions to go and take. Can I hold you accountable? Not yet. I mean, we have a virtual course coming out that we're going to track that. But the reality is, this is your money vehicle. This is not mine. If you don't want to take the actions, if you are not going to sit in the driver's seat, nobody can help you. And one of the realities I try to drive home to young professionals is if you don't care about future you, nobody does. In the NFL, we'd always say we play for that name on the side of our helmet. You want to be a bird, you want to be an eagle or Seahawk, who dat, same. But that name on your back, nobody else cares about that more than you do. And so if you're not prioritizing them, nobody's going to. And with today's economic world and our financial industry shifting from the pension system to the individual automobile, the 401k and IRA, you really need to start taking control. That's what I jokingly, and it's not a joke, who is the happiest about preparing for the coronavirus are the millions of companies who shifted away from pension systems. If they were still holding that bag, whoa. But they're not. They shifted that liability onto you. And now we need to wake up and realize, okay, it is in our control. The ball's in our court. What do we do?
Yeah, knowledge coupled with responsibility is the key to being able to move forward and be successful. I want to circle back while we're talking NFL a little bit. And with our theme, men and money, the NFL is a male sport. It's male dominated in its operations. What did you see? What did you feel? What did you hear as it pertains to how other men were organizing their finances? You know, there's a big statistic out there that something like 70% of athletes go broke within, I think, the first 5 years, and probably need a new one. I know that statistic is pretty old, but we do know that athletes struggle with their finances. And we just talked about knowledge and responsibility. What do you feel is the thing that's holding some athletes back from actually taking that money and making that money really work for them for life?
So one, that statistic came out about my rookie year, 2008, from that Broke documentary. And that also impacted my mindset and changing my life. I'm going to say something that a lot of people wouldn't expect. Obviously, everybody's like, oh, NFL players, they bought the chain or the car or the 3 houses or whatever, and boo-hoo them, they went broke. You know, you line up 100 frat bros at 22 and give them $1 million. I'll show you how many of them end up creating a financial plan as well. But the reality is, I would say the largest expense outside of society and taxes, most of these guys endure. And the reason a lot of them struggle is they don't know how to say no. They don't know the power of saying no. They don't know how to prioritize themselves. And that's nature. You know, this idea of hoarding and saving is actually unnatural. That idea that I'm going to keep more from future me would be shunned in past societies and cultures. And that trickles down into this idea of most of these young men are the first in their family to achieve this kind of success, to have this kind of opportunity. And they don't understand that if they don't take care of themselves for the next 60 years, they're only going to be able to take care of everybody for the next 6 or 6 months. And that is where people often overlook. I've talked to rookies. One of my most heartbreaking stories, flying back from a playoff game. We were leaving the playoff game. We had unfortunately just lost. Don't need to get into all that, but a 7-9 Seattle team hosting a home playoff game. That's for you to decide if that's fair. But when we were flying back, I'm talking to this rookie and he says, man, we don't get any more checks. And I said, no, in the NFL, you get paid to play. You get 17 checks for 17 weeks. This has just been renegotiated in the new CBA. So it's being updated because they see the problem of it. But as of January, you stop getting a paycheck. And so January to September, you got to cover yourself. And this rookie said, I only have $22,000 left in my bank account after making $325,000 that year in 4 months. And so I started to talk to him. And he said, well, I'm the first generation into this country. Christmas came. My family has never celebrated Christmas. I flew 50 of my family members from my home country into town. I bought them presents. I put them up, and they had the best Christmas of their life. And my heart broke, and I loved it. I said, man, that's amazing. But what you got to start realizing is you want to provide a good Christmas for the rest of your life for all of those people, not just one great Christmas. And I'm not saying say no. I'm not saying don't turn off the faucet and tell them to all bugger off. I'm saying you need to have a number. You need to go into this conversation knowing I'm going to give 10% of my salary. 40% is going to the government. 30% is going to future me. 10% can be my compassion. It can be my give bucket. but above that 10%, no more. And what most guys don't realize is you buy 4 or 5 tickets for family members each home game or away game, that ends up being $25,000 throughout the year. And that is 1 week's check. So boom, you just went from 17 to 16 without even realizing it. And so that is some of those things. A lot of these men have this idea that I'm the head of the household, I'm the head of the family, now I've made it. Now I have to make sure everybody in my world is going to make it around me. And that is such a challenge. And it is such a psychological challenge, which is why I think money and mindset go hand in hand. And you're never going to be able to truly take control of your future finances without controlling your mindset.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I can't imagine the amount of pressure that someone must feel to be able to take care of their family, and how much pride they feel that they can take care of their family, but then also lack the tools and the knowledge to be able to really understand how to use those resources appropriately to take care of their family. And then there's the shame that comes after the money is run out and they can no longer take care. And like you said, there's plenty of people who are quick to say what they would have, could have, should have done.
Yeah.
But when you get a large sum in a short period of time and you don't have knowledge, whether you get $1 and you don't have knowledge, or you get $1 million, you don't have knowledge, without the knowledge, you're going to end up in the same situation if you don't go seek the knowledge.
And I love that. That's a good thought experiment. If every one of your listeners took 1 second, 1 minute, and said, all right, $500,000 showed up in my bank account, my checking account tomorrow, what would you do with it? And I know people in their heart are going to be like, oh, I'd save it. I'd put it towards my 401k. It's like, okay, then good. Then you're preparing for it. But the reality is most guys wake up with $500,000 in their checking account and they just go. They keep going forward. So I love that.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Let's transition to talking about your book. So your money vehicle is the book. And tell me kind of a little bit about why you were driven to even create a book. You awesome speaker. I feel like you should be on a speaking tour, but you wanted to package it all up in a nice, neat book and hand it out to the world, and share a little bit more about why you decided to do that.
Well, one, really humbled and appreciate that. I would love to share my message. So anybody who thinks I should speak somewhere, by all means, line it up. So why I wrote the book was for a few reasons. One was because I also realized the whole damage to my brain that was going on. And so I love writing things down. People are like, oh, that's very self-aware. And I'm like, no, I just was being told I was going to forget all this. So I wanted to remember some of it. And so the second part was this idea that I really started to enjoy teaching people about money, my brothers, myself. But when I sit down in the locker room and I'd start talking to players about, our 401k, or, hey, you just had a baby, go do these things, I really started to enjoy this idea of empowering people to own their financial future. And I would go out, and I started at my alumni at Washington State, and I said, hey, I'm going to come back and teach this financial class that's going to change the world. It's going to blow these young cats' mind, because I had become a certified financial planner. Each offseason, I began studying for my CFP. So I was getting my CFP while playing in the NFL. And this first class, I said, here are the 5 things every one of you should know. Get out that pen and paper. And it went totally over their head. And I was like, dang. Good feedback.
I can totally relate. I was so excited about everything I wanted to share. I know, guys, I got the answers to the test.
I got them.
And they're like,
So what I realized was, okay, I want to teach you this. To get here, I got to back up a step. You got to understand this thing over here to get to that. Ooh, well, to understand this, you got to understand this thing over here to get that step, to then take that. So I had to go backwards and create the level 1 course, the base foundation you can build your financial plan on. And that's what your money vehicle became, was in these workshops. I've delivered hundreds of them. What are the 10 most frequently asked questions, the 10 steps in the holistic wheel of money? So many personal finance books focus on investments. I get it. It's the sexy engine. It's the roar. And we need to talk about it, but the reality is you control very little around your investments. I give you very clean, actionable advice. We talk about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, index funds, and actually what to go buy in the book, because it should be so simple at the start. So many people get so overwhelmed You can make one purchase with an index fund and own thousands of companies. That is the beginning of your plan. And so what we do is in the book, Your Money Vehicle, we tackle 10 different topics, 10 different questions. And it's really a summation of those first 10 questions every one of us should ask to begin a financial plan. And that's where it began was, hey, Jed's delivering these workshops. Now I'm starting to write out the stories because I'm a big analogy storyteller. I think if you just beat people over the head with gross to net income or stock bond, you don't remember. Your mind remembers pictures, not words. So they will remember stories. I begin chapter 1 talking about the train industry and the car industry. And we end chapter 10 talking about different kinds of vehicles for your money, but we go and start chopping down trees and growing different trees. And so I think if we can really start a conversation and tell it in short, digestible stories, people will comprehend it. And then you give them that action and you give them the confidence to go do it, they will be empowered.
It's so important that we break it down in a way that doesn't run people away, because money can be so overwhelming. And that's what causes paralysis. People are just like, I want to get started, but I have no idea what to do. You said something I don't understand, so I'm going to go back to just keep doing what I'm doing. Pay bills, earn paycheck, pay due, earn paycheck, because they're overwhelmed. So it's very, very, very important. Can you give us an idea of some of these steps? There's 10 easy steps. So
Yes.
give us just a couple. Come on, give me a little teaser.
I mean, and this is truly meant for people beginning their plan. So chapter 3 is around cash management. We go through the 5 choices you're going to have to make with every dollar you make. And it doesn't matter if you're Jeff Bezos or you getting your check tomorrow. Chapter 6 does go through stocks, bonds, how to choose and what to look for in an index fund. Chapter 7 is insurance. And so what the measurement of premium and deductible, how to save some money there and how to make sure you're protected. Chapter 8 is cybersecurity. So I think that is a very overlooked subject in money. And it's around passwords and it's around the new phishing hole and how people are attacking you. Chapter 9 is definitely taxes. And we go to an ice cream parlor to understand income tax brackets. And then we start talking about standard versus itemized and what you actually can control. And then chapter 10 is, and each chapter has a different question, but the chapter 10 question is, what is my best advantage? And I truly believe the best advantage for a young professional is the Roth account. I look at the 401k. It has been a great vehicle, a great tool. It is not being utilized across the country, but young professionals, for 2 major reasons. Number 1, they're in the lowest income tax bracket of their careers. And number 2, they can have a 50, 60, 70-year time frame of tax-free growth. That's an immediate savings. You look at those 2 advantages for a young person and say, put some in there, chip it away. So we go through 3, the brokerage account, the tax deferred, and then the tax-free account in chapter 10. So if you need better understanding, go grab your money vehicle. We will go through those first 10 steps. You will have good, clear, actionable advice as well as education. What I want is a million Roth accounts to be opened, because people will then be showing us they know how to use money. And why I say use money is U, understand, S, strategize, and E, be efficient. And I think that is the objective of your money vehicle. And that is all of our objectives, is to use money better.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So it sounds like this book might be kind of a complete roadmap to better understanding your finances. Would you say that there are people that still would need to work with a financial planner even after reading this book? And what are the benefits to working with a financial planner? Because sometimes people don't really see the value. They look at us and they say, ugh, I don't want to pay somebody to help me figure out my money. I want to know. And especially, like you said, if you're a man is taking care of the household and you don't know a lot about this, a book is a great way to start with knowledge. But why might it be worthwhile to invest in hiring a person to help you go the next step?
So I love that question. And I really love making this clear. I am not an advisor anymore. I am not a wealth management. And my objective is not to replace those very, very important roles. My objective is to fill the gap between where you are today and getting to the place where you need an advisor. And so I think you finish this book, you spend 6 months, a year getting these action steps in order, and then you get to go sit down with an advisor and you get to ask them questions like, are you a fiduciary? How do you get paid? what exactly are your services, and where in my roadmap, where in my plan are you going to add value and help me? So I would say this is the training camp, and you need to come get set up, get structured, get some of the discipline in. And then as you look at season, you need a coach. There is no better skill than to have a good mentor, a good coach with you that is going to take you and guide you and be accountable to your plan. So no, I'm not saying you will end this book as a CFP. I'm not saying you will not need an advisor. I am saying you will be able to take good steps in the direction of, I now need a financial advisor. You might not be there today, but this book will help you get to a place where, yes, you are now needing to talk to somebody because your plan is growing, and because the more you understand, the more you will see how little you actually know.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I could not have said it better myself. It's so important that people start to make the investment in themselves. And it is so easy to invest in a book. Spend $20 on a book and start setting yourself on course for your financial future. And then you'll realize and understand the value and the investment that you make when you move on to working with a financial planner, because you'll understand, okay, I've got this money. I want to continue to optimize my finances. I've started the process. I have a nice foundation. What else can I do? Oh, I need an expert to bring in to be able to do that. I could not have said it better myself. It's one of those things where you've got to take you said you want to be responsible for the knowledge. You got to take some responsibility by opening the book, cracking it, reading it, implementing, and then you say, okay, what do we do to go next level? I don't want to play college sports anymore. I want to be in the league. How do I get there? So yeah, can't have said it better, honestly.
I like that, college to pro. That's excellent. This might be like you're going from high school to college. This might be the like, hey, we're getting high school, and then college is now we're starting to get a financial advisor. And then I would say the pros is like, all right, I need a team. Like I need a lawyer and a CPA and a real estate person and state people. Like that's a whole different ball. That's the world I came from. And when you start looking at that quarterbacking of it, you're absolutely right. Like that is the progression, and it's high school, college, go pro. All of our hope is to reach freedom, to have that plan that is in place, that is being taken care of, that gives us peace of mind.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Jed, we are getting ready to wrap up. This has been all the gems, all the knowledge. It's been more than I bargained for. Thank you for providing so much value to the listeners. We're switching from football back over to my sport, track and field, and we're going to do what I like to call the final sprint. So I'm going to rapid fire some questions at you. I want to see what kind of answers you have.
I was never very fast, so be careful.
We'll see if I give you a medal at the end of all this.
Yeah.
All right, you got $20 in your pocket right now. What do you spend it on?
Probably a toy or something for my girls.
Something for the kids. I love it. Finish this sentence. That awkward financial moment when.
That awkward financial moment when you realize you owe the government a lot of money.
Ooh, good problem or bad problem?
If you had prepared for it, good problem. If you had not prepared for it, very bad problem.
Very bad
problem. If you are an entrepreneur, self-employed, 1099, most people are not preparing for it.
Mm-hmm. All right. You might need a loan in that situation. So my next question is, what is your policy on loaning people money?
Can't answer this one too quickly. Number one, it's very emotional. Money is emotional. And so are you willing to enter into a relationship that is already emotional tie and add in an emotional complexity? Then you look at a friend or a family member and wonder, am I willing to risk this relationship of a friend or family member for money? Then you ask yourself, well, am I willing to bring in finances to Thanksgiving dinner? Because once you enter into that relationship, it doesn't go away. It's no different than doing business. Money is business. You have to begin to look at that and how you do that with your money. And then you start to look at the dynamic of how is it going to impact the rest of your situation and truly how you will be able to handle that responsibility. I think borrowing money is a necessity for a lot of things. You look at the American dream of owning a home. Nobody, and maybe not nobody, but most nobody can buy a home in cash. So you need to take out a loan. There is a difference between good debt and bad debt. I think If you look at it from something that will appreciate or something that will generate more money, those can be considered good debt. I know Dave Ramsey would disagree with me. Bring it on, Dave. I'd love to talk. But I look at those ideas and then I add in the complexity of doing it with family or personal relationships. And I think that's just too much. I've seen it and dealt with it too much from an athlete perspective. And I think it's there are very many opportunities and resources out there today that can create a better alternative.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you're right. I didn't give you an easy one to sprint with, but you gave a very, very good answer. All right. Best advice you've ever received.
You make $1, you save a dime.
Make $1, save a dime. I love it. Worst advice you've ever received.
I'm better than people.
Ooh, not better than people.
No. And so much of an athlete, so much of a student, so much of success today is trying to make yourself special. A quote I try to pride myself and live by, could not be more appropriate than our times right now, is Ralph Waldo Emerson. Everyone is better than me in some way. From that, I will learn from them. And I think if we all take a moment each morning, take a breath, and really meditate on those kinds of thoughts, that's how we're going to create the change everybody is seeking.
Definitely. Worst money habit.
My worst money habit would have to be that beautiful bride of mine. I'm not a spender anymore. And it's a curse because I should be more comfortable in spending. Like now I'm like, why? We don't need that. Don't buy it. So my worst money habit is having a beautiful wife and 2 little girls.
What's your best money habit then?
My best money habit would probably be buying books, reading, Audible, those investments in yourself. One, it's therapeutic for me and it's a way to kind of dull my edge, getting knowledge, getting experience, and just hearing stories of other people going through the tough times. But also it pays you back tenfold. And if you don't see books and try to steal from them, you're not approaching them correctly. I think everybody needs to appreciate this idea that we steal success. By all means, be an artist, steal.
All right. You got to get your money vehicle to be able to steal the financial knowledge in there. All right. Last but not least, could you share with us one thing that you would like to improve about your personal finances in the upcoming year?
Well, I created a business on public speaking, and with recent climate, I am not becoming a public speaker anytime soon. So the one thing I want to improve upon in my finances is finding new sources of income, taking this time, preparing myself for the new world. I have an online course, the Your Money Vehicle. We call it Driving Your Money Vehicle, coming out. Podcasting is something I've begun, and virtual workshops. But this idea that my main source of income got taken away, I think something in my financial plan needs to figure out that issue because it's a problem.
I mean, I think one of the biggest things that people think, or, the perception wise, is like, oh, you're a CFP or you're a financial person, you do this for a living, that we never make financial mistakes. And, if you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, I tell all kinds of mistakes that I've made, but I love to drive home the point that, we're all growing, we're all learning, and we're all trying to optimize always.
Mm-hmm. Fail forward.
Fail forward. Jed, it has been great having you on the show today. You do get a medal. You get to stand on a podium.
Right.
Here you go. Worth listening medal. This is your time to shine. As we play the anthem and the imaginary music that you're hearing in the background, tell us how we can support you, where we can find you, anything else that you want to share that you didn't get to share today.
Excellent. So Your Money Vehicle is on Amazon. By all means, check that out. My website is jedidiahcollins.com. I would also challenge you, if you're interested, I got the support of 30 of my friends who have played or are playing in the National Football League to create an app and to put out a financial literacy challenge for free. yourmoneyvehicle.com/app, APP. You can go download that and you will get 30 days. It's about a minute a day, and it challenges you with a question, and then it gives you an action item to go take. So that is a completely free resource. And then this summer, look for Driving Your Money Vehicle, which is going to be the online course of the book. But I would say if you're going to do anything, go download that app, yourmoneyvehicle.com/app, and you'll get to see maybe some people you recognize, but more importantly, they will ask you questions for your financial future.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being on the show, Jed.
Enjoy the day.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Jedidiah's money memoir. He dropped all the gems today, touching on some important topics regarding men and money. First, he reminded us not to let your ego get in the way of making financial progress. A second point that he wanted to drive home was addressing your mindset. We all know that mindset is so key for making meaningful change in your life. Jed also gave us some unique insight into the trouble that professional athletes run into as it pertains to money, and I think it's a little bit different than many might have assumed. If you got $1 million right now, what would you do with it? I think this is an important exercise to go through. Start by writing down your $1 million at the top line and kind of create a budget with it. Don't forget, you got to pay taxes, so roughly 40% of it is gone right out the gate. You've got to take care of things like any current debt that you may have, consider your student loans, consider your mortgage, car notes, etc. Remember, while you might say you're going to stock it all away, you can only put $19,500 into your retirement account. While there are other savings mechanisms, you can't just stuff it all into your retirement and think you're going to be good to go. While it's easier said than done to say that $1 million can truly change your trajectory, especially if you add others that you care about and their needs and their wants, it's just not going to stretch as far as you might think. We would all love to have a big check fall in our lap, but whether you get $1 or $1 million, it can slip through your hands without knowledge and a plan. So if you want to learn more about money and you need help making a plan, don't hesitate to hit us up at worth-winning.com. Don't forget to check out Jed's book, Your Money Vehicle. And thank you for tuning in today. We hope you found this episode worth listening to. As always, if you have financial questions, suggestions for guests, or would like to share your own money memoir, don't hesitate to reach out to us through our website, worth-listening.com.